I didn't want to spend my Friday morning in divorce court, but I had no other option when dealing with an ex-wife like Monica. From the beginning, the entire procedure had been a disaster, filled with absurd filings, delays, and outright tantrums, all intended to waste my time. We wouldn't have ended up here if Monica had dedicated half as much energy to our marriage as she did to making my life miserable. But I almost chuckled when she entered the hearing, pregnant. Not because I assumed the child was mine, I knew it wasn't, but because I could see the plan developing in her mind like a cheesy soap opera storyline. Monica was hoping that the judge would perceive her as a vulnerable, impoverished, and abandoned pregnant woman in real time. She wanted to make me pay, disregard the prenuptial agreement, disregard reason, and play the compassion card. I could already hear the statement she had prepared in her mind as she left with a sizable payoff. "Your Honor, I have a baby on the way, and I'm left with nothing. How am I going to live?" She was trying to paint herself as a victim, hoping that I would crumble under the pressure. But what Monica didn't know was that I had already found her out months ago. However, Monica's problem wasn't just that she was unreliable, careless, and terrible at marriage. No, her real problem was that she was a terrible liar. Overconfident, she believed she had everything under control, that I would panic, become agitated, and maybe even make a settlement offer to avoid looking like the villain. She had no idea what was coming. Monica strutted into the courtroom with an attitude of smugness, one hand propped on her belly, the other stroking her hair behind her ear, sighing dramatically as she sat down. She wasn't just going to lie, she was going to lie boldly. I didn't react. I didn't have to, because I was prepared. And so was Marcus. Marcus, my attorney, was the type of man who would smile in court while systematically dismantling his opponent with the law. I didn't dislike lawyers, but I was relieved to have him on my side. Monica had already burned through 3 different attorneys since the beginning of this divorce. Her new lawyer? A fresh-faced kid, probably trying to win his first big case. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost Monica had tried this routine before. Not the pregnancy trick, but the deception, the manipulation, the "I'm just a struggling woman, please have sympathy" act. And unfortunately, some people bought it, including my mother. She had called me a week before the hearing, tired and exasperated. "You don't want this to go on forever," she sighed. "Do you really want that on your conscience? Monica is pregnant." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Are you sure, Mom?" She hesitated. "This isn't my kid. She cheated on me, repeatedly, and I caught her." The worst part? If I hadn't caught her, I might have actually believed this child was mine. But unlike Monica, I take responsibility for my actions. Mom was silent for a moment. Then she groaned. I promised her I'd handle it. And now, here we were, as soon as the judge entered and the hearing began. Monica's attorney started spinning his tale. "Your Honor, my client is pregnant, unemployed, and in a terrible situation." Monica sniffled on cue, dabbing at her eyes, feigning the mental and financial strain of this prolonged divorce. I didn't even blink. But Marcus? He had an almost undetectable smirk at the corner of his lips. After patiently waiting for the theatrics to finish, he finally spoke. "Before we proceed, we need to clarify a few things about Miss Carter's situation." Then, he turned to Monica's attorney. "First question, who is the child's father?" Monica tensed. She had anticipated this question, but she had also assumed the court wouldn't dare ask it. The plan had been simple: waltz in, look helpless, leave with a huge check. But legally, she was already sinking. Her lawyer stammered, "My client believes that the paternity of the child is irrelevant." I nearly laughed. Marcus didn't even flinch. "Miss Carter," the judge interjected, his eyebrows narrowing. "Have you had a paternity test?" Monica's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "I mean, I just assumed," The judge cut her off. Miss Carter, is there any evidence that the petitioner is the father? Monica paled. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. At this point, Marcus was simply finishing the job. Your Honor, we have strong evidence that disproves Miss Carter's claims. He slid photos across the table. Images of Monica on vacation, 2 months after our separation, holding hands and kissing another man. The nail in the coffin? Medical records. We obtained Miss Carter's most recent medical documents. They confirm that this is her first pregnancy, which was conceived months after she and my client had already split. Silence. Monica's face crumbled. Her lawyer? He just looked at her like she had thrown him overboard with an anchor tied to his feet. The judge sighed, shaking his head. Miss Carter, this court does not tolerate deceit. Given the evidence, your financial claims have no foundation. The prenuptial agreement will be upheld, and you will receive nothing. Monica gasped, as if she had just been physically struck. The judge raised a hand. This hearing is concluded. And just like that, it was over. Monica sat motionless, her plan unraveling before her eyes. She had entered the courtroom expecting a paycheck. Instead, she had been publicly humiliated. Her lawyer wouldn't even look at her. She gripped the table, clinging to the last shreds of her scheme. But I just sat back and waited for the inevitable tantrum. This is unfair. I'm about to give birth, and he just gets to walk away? Her voice rose in pitch as she stormed out. The judge exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. Miss Carter, I am done. This court does not make financial decisions based on emotional appeals. Without proof of paternity, your pregnancy is legally irrelevant. She turned to me, furious. One last desperate plea. You're really going to do this? To your own child? I grinned. Are you sure you want to go there, Monica? She flinched. Because she knew. Everyone in that room knew. And then, Miss Carter, please come with us. A court officer, her face twisted in shock. What? Miss Carter, the court is recommending an investigation into potential fraud and perjury. Her world shattered. She was dragged back inside. I didn't follow. Over the next 6 months, Monica was no longer my problem. The court fined her for wasting their time. Her lawyer quit. Her new boyfriend left her. She was denied government assistance because he wasn't. Even sure he was the father. And me? I was finally free. Then one day, a text. I hope you're happy. I stared at it for a second, then replied, thanks for asking, and blocked the number. For the first time in years, Monica was out of my life, and I intended to keep it that way. Because she was impoverished and resentful, the judge invalidated a legally binding prenuptial agreement and dismissed it before it ever went to trial. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Within a week, Monica's appeal was dismissed. Now that her last chance to get money from me was gone, she had no other options. And so, there was only one thing left for her to do. When the first signs of Monica's complete collapse appeared, she snapped. She began making lengthy, insane tirades on social media, accusing me of ruining her life. She called me a liar, a narcissist, and a man who used the legal system as a weapon against a defenseless woman. She even accused me of bribing the judge and taking advantage of my privilege to escape responsibility. At first, I ignored her obvious and repulsive lies. But then, she took it a step further. She began messaging my friends, my family, and even my coworkers, sending them lengthy, emotional texts about how I had abandoned her and our unborn child. But by this point, nobody believed her. People started sending me screenshots. One of my former coworkers didn't just ignore her, he called her out. We all saw what happened in court, Monica. You lied. Move on. Another friend messaged her. You actually tried to extort him by forging a single document. Maybe you should take some responsibility for once. Even my mother sent me a message telling me Monica had reached out, and that she had firmly told her to stop contacting her. And that's when Monica finally realized she was alone. The last time I saw her, it was by pure chance. One morning, I happened to walk past a coffee shop and saw her sitting in the corner. She looked absolutely unrecognizable. She was no longer the confident, smug woman who had walked into the courtroom, certain she was about to take half my money. Instead, she looked exhausted, defeated. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her clothes were unkempt. For a brief moment, I almost felt sorry for her. She must have sensed my gaze because she looked up, and for a second, our eyes met. I gave her a small smile, not arrogant, just one that said, "You did this to yourself." Her face twisted with hatred as she quickly looked away, staring into her empty coffee cup. And at that moment, I knew. Monica had lost everything, not just financially, but her reputation, her relationships, her dignity, and most importantly, she had no one left to blame. A few days later, I received a text from an unknown number. "Are you happy now?" I didn't need to ask who it was. I typed back, "Yes, thanks for asking." Then, I blocked her number. For the first time since the divorce began, I was free. Or at least, I thought I was. I should have known Monica wouldn't let go without attempting one final desperate move. Her reputation was destroyed. Her finances were in ruins. The appeal had failed. The fraud case had cost her everything. Even Ryan, the boyfriend she had been counting on, was gone. He left when he realized he might not even be the father of her child. But despite everything, she still believed she could drag me down with her. And that's when she made her biggest mistake. It started when Marcus, my lawyer, called me. "Monica, just filed a restraining order against you. I almost dropped my phone." "What? On what grounds?" "Claims of emotional abuse and harassment," Marcus said. I let out a slow breath. "So let me get this straight. After everything she did? After trying to defraud me, falsified documents, lying under oath, now she's claiming to be the victim, Marcus?" Confirmed that Monica was accusing me of stalking her online, harassing her, and intimidating her ever since the divorce ruling. I nearly laughed. I hadn't spoken to Monica in months. This was just another pathetic attempt to rewrite the narrative, to make it seem like I was obsessed with her. "What do we do?" I asked. "She doesn't have a case," Marcus replied. "This is just another legal tactic. If the restraining order is granted, she'll use it to file another lawsuit for damages, hoping you'll pay her off to avoid the trouble." "But she hasn't learned anything, has she?" I groaned. "Okay, let's put an end to this." The hearing was scheduled for a week later. As I walked into the courtroom, I felt nothing. No anger, no frustration, just exhaustion. Monica was already there, sitting across the room, dressed carefully to look fragile and broken. Her makeup was just subtle enough to make her seem pale and exhausted, as if my supposed harassment had left her unable to care for herself. It was almost comical. I didn't even look in her direction. When the judge entered and the hearing began, Monica's lawyer stood up and started reading from the same tired script she had used in every legal battle before. "Your Honor, my client has endured months of relentless harassment. She fears for her safety and the safety of her unborn child. She is requesting an immediate restraining order to protect her well-being." Monica sniffled, dabbing at a non-existent tear.